Good day to all of you. We are watching another edition. I'm not even watching, I'm hosting. I don't know why I said that. Can't do anything, we're live. We're here with another edition of the Superstars podcast. My name is Chad Levine. I am the Superstar Lender and Superstar Coach. I always am here with the esteemed professionals in this wonderful world of real estate that we work in. It's the hustlers, it's the superstars, and this guy's no exception to the rule. I'm going to butcher the shit out of his name. Mr. Brian McGroarty of Core Title. How'd I do?
Well done, man. Well done. I'm impressed. You're one of like the 4 people ever in my lifetime that's got it right. So well done.
We had to practice a little bit in the green room. I'm not going to lie, guys. That's an interesting tongue twister. And you want to say McGroarty. I mean, does everyone add the extra G in just like from an Irish thing or what?
Oh man, I got McGroarty, I got McGarity, I got like any variation you can think of. I just go, okay, sure, I know who you're talking to. It's all good.
So we got a lot to unpack. You're an interesting cat, bro. So I'm gonna tell everyone I came onto the scene. Let's see. I probably started to hit South Jersey heavier in like early 2020. I was slowly making my way over to the bridge. Came from Philly, started working with a few agents, but as soon as I knew we were going to move, I was like, all right, I got to start making my way into this scene because it is a different network, a different community. Anyone that's ever understood switching regions or switching territories, you're breaking into a whole new world, right? And that starts with working and understanding how it works because every market is so different in how it operates. And you were one of the early people I found out about, to be honest with you.
Okay,
yeah?
Cool.
So believe it or not, you are a brand name. You're a recognized name in the real estate community. And we're going to find out why. I think one of your strongest traits is you are a master networker. You are a big believer in it, and I can't wait to hear about all the things you do with that. But let's start with your story, man. So you born and raised, are you South Jersey through and through or what?
Oh yeah, South Jersey, born and raised, Barrington, little small town, next to Runnymede, close to Haddon Heights. And it's funny, anytime everybody asks me like, where's Barrington? I'm like, Cherry Hill? I'm like, it's close to there.
Yeah. What's funny? Barrington is a cool little spot. And that's the one thing about South Jersey I love. It's like all these little towns. And the big thing that I love the most is they all have their own little main street, little mainstream communities, every single one of them.
Oh yeah. Barrington's a little bit different though. It's the intramural sports. Soccer was real big, baseball, things like that. They didn't have all the lacrosse and football. In fact, if you wanted to play football when you were younger, in my time, you had to go to Belmar to play because they were the only ones that actually had something. But it's a very like enmeshed town. Everybody kind of knew everybody, their cousins, their family, they all moved there at the same time. So if you met one person, you met 30 at the same time.
I love it. Were you into sports? Was that your thing?
Oh yeah, every season I had something going on. But between baseball, I did soccer for a little bit. Basketball was a big love of mine. And then if it wasn't anything that I was involved in on the town or scholastically or whatever you'd like to say, it became something just of a hobby.
Yeah.
It was golf. Golf was real big. As soon as I got the opportunity to do that, in high school, that was an easy check mark right off the box.
Do you have any glory stories or anything specifically in your sports era that you want to like shine on? I mean, now's your moment, bro.
Oh, wow. No, of course. I'll tell you, I won't tell you a glory story, but I'll tell you a really funny story. There was a time where I was on the JV part of the golf team. It was my freshman year. And there was this one guy, I thought I was bad, but he was way worse than I was. And we were sitting there at Tavistock Country Club. Long and the short of it is Tavistock, the old one, when I played, had a lot of trees on both sides. It was like a bowling alley. And we're going up against, the other JV team, whatever. So we hit, and this guy literally, it was like one of those cartoon things, hits a tree, whizzes by my head, hits this guy, come over here. And it was the funniest thing. And he's like, did anybody see where that ball went? And I was like, yeah, this guy's like knocked out, sitting on the ground. Dude, I'm telling you, the JV golf team was probably one of the most fun I've ever had in high school. It was fun.
Dude, that and you know what's nice about it? There's really no pressure, right? So my biggest problem with golf is that, believe it or not, there's this unspoken pressure, right? You're like,
Yeah.
oh, let's go to the like, yeah, just come out and play, no pressure. We'll play for. Let me tell you, if you don't have any idea, and I call them sticks on purpose, because what I've understood is if you humiliate yourself before you shoot, it actually like it sets the expectation. Right?
Right,
So if I call it a stick, you immediately know I have no idea what I'm talking about. Right? So when I miss the ball, it's completely it's actually a respected thing, right? So, I have always felt a great amount of pressure no matter who I've gone with. And it is it is awesome. It's fun. I love the culture, but it's one of the more humiliating things. I got to tell you.
It's tough, man. I mean, I'll say this, the one thing that's happened to me is I love to have a good time when golfing. I'm a very easygoing guy. I throw on the tunes, you have a drink, you enjoy yourself. There's only one time I can say that I regretted golfing with somebody, and I invited a lender out. I won't say from where.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's ever golfed ever in his entire life. He shows up in literally like business attire, like a suit. And I'm like, hey, there's a clubhouse inside if you want to get changed. He's like, nah, I'm good. And I'm like, but you have dress shoes on. Like, and I'm talking about like the dress shoes with no grip. And luckily, I had just had an extra spare clubs in my bag because somebody borrowed them or whatever. And I was like, okay, where's your clubs? And he's like, oh, I don't have any. I'm like, are you going to rent them? And he's like, no. I'm like, whew. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. So we get going, and I'm talking to the guy. His first swing, I kid you not, Ramblewood Country Club, takes a shot and then literally throws my driver into the tree. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the longest day of my life.
Dude, if that is not a Happy Gilmore story, I don't know what is, dude. That's awesome.
That was a long 4 hours. But
that's the thing. It's like you can be invited by anyone on any course. But if you don't have any concept, it is brutal, bro.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, see, the thing is that knowing that you're not good is okay. Yeah. So anytime I take somebody out, like, okay, let's say if you went, you're like, Brian, I'm not doing so great lately. I'm like, listen, I shoot fairly well. Why don't you just, wherever I hit, you just drop a ball next to me and then whack one. Whatever it is, just drop one next to me and go. And it's a lot easier. We can still have a good conversation. Again, there's no pressure. You just enjoy yourself. In fact, I've actually gained some business from that. I actually took out some, women realtors, and they wanted to learn how to play. And I was like, listen, just come along with me. I'll teach you on the driving range. I'll teach you on the course, whatever you want to do. And they have a ball. And even today, they'll reach out to me like, I still remember the things you taught me.
Dude, look at that. Like, you're always finding the angles. And I'm hopefully you're going to share some of those nuggets with us today. You're very conscious of that stuff. And I've noticed that about you, that you always find ways to make meaningful interactions and connections in an authentic way that doesn't feel salesy, right? That builds those deep relationships. That's dope, dude. I dig that. That's very cool. So talk about your likability and sociability. Have you always been super outgoing, super confident? Are you overcompensating? Like, where did all this stuff come from?
That's so funny. I like that. I like how you threw that in there. I'll say this. For the most part, I mean, I have a big family, big Italian family. And, if you weren't talking, there's something like weird about you. They're like, what's wrong with you? Yeah. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you saying anything? Yeah. And even then they'd force you to like do something. Like I remember one of my ex-girlfriends when I was in high school, she was like really big into dance and like choreographed things and whatever. And I introduced her to my family, and then she mentioned that she did that. They're like, really? Oh, that's awesome. They start moving furniture aside. They throw on some tunes. They're like, what song you need? Show us the dance right now. Do it. I'm like, oh my God, this is like so embarrassing. But you couldn't not talk in my family. These things happen. But, you learn to just chat with people. When I was younger, my mother went back to school to get her degree after my parents split. And she had people that would come over, professors and whatnot, and colleagues. And so at a young age, I would be like, hi, I'm Brian McGroarty. Nice to meet you. You know what I mean? Like that was my shtick at 7 years old, so I'm used to doing it.
That's awesome. Has the parental split thing, how did that impact you at an early age? Were you cool with it, or how'd that go?
Well, I mean, it happened when I was 5. So 5, you don't really understand much, but I can say this. I love my parents deeply in a great way. They have such amazing qualities about them. My mom, the entrepreneur, she's got, the spiritual side, which I get from, my father, he's, the down to earth, street smarts kind of guy. He's taught me a lot about sales. He's in sales, now retired in Myrtle Beach, enjoying himself. And, I learned a lot from both of them. So there was a yin and yang approach to it. And I can say this, man, I'm so glad that how my life turned out from, people look at a divorce like a really tumultuous situation, a really emotional situation. But I just had parents that really loved me, and that was never an issue. So it didn't affect me in a bad way.
And shout out to your parents for letting the putting you as the priority, right? Because not many do. They get very, very selfish in those situations.
Yeah,
and it's super hard because when you do that, you kind of supersede the most important part, which is the child, right? So that's pretty dope that they were able to do that. And the fact that you're able to speak about it that way shows that they did it right. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And, the one thing as a parent is that one day you're going to realize that your kids are not perfect. Or not your kids, not perfect. You're not perfect.
Right.
And if you realize that, being imperfect is okay.
Yeah.
But showing your kids that there's faults, but also how you react to those things. Like there's times I mess up, and I talked to my son. I was like, you know what? I shouldn't have said that, but I'm sorry. And I apologize. And even at a young age, when your son goes, I forgive you, Dad, it's okay. Man, I'll tell you, that warms your heart.
He could be one of the cutest kids I've ever seen. Like that kid, I when he smiles, you're like, oh my God. And it's so funny because my daughter has the same effect when she's doing something super demon. Like she just gives that face, and I'm like, you know what? If it weren't for that face, man.
She got you. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's funny too. I mean, he's an adorable kid. I'm blessed. And it's his mother and I, we joke around about that. She's like, man, if you had a daughter, you would have, she would have had you wrapped around his finger. And I said, you know what? It is interesting because there's some times when I'm chatting with him and he'll say things to me, and I'm like, you know what? I used to say the same thing when I was your age, and I did it a lot better than you're doing it right now. So I'm not buying your stuff, dude. And then he'll just kind of smirk at me like, okay.
I love it, man. Well, I want to unpack mom and dad for a minute. So it's interesting. So mom, the entrepreneur, tell me about that.
Yeah. So my mom went back to school after my parents split. She got her degree. Got her master's, and a few years ago actually just got her doctorate, and all into the PR marketing world. And let's see where she started. She started from the bottom, just like a lot of our parents did. She went her way up the corporate ladder of just doing administrative work, and then the next thing you know, she gets a promotion, and now she's on the team and she's presenting, and then she's an executive, and then she's a higher level executive. Then she moves to New York on another position, and then she's back down to Philly, and then she had her own thing. I mean, she's out there, man, and she doesn't stop. She's just in her early 70s, and even still to this day takes opportunities in business. I don't think she's ever gonna retire. It's just not in her blood.
What's her superpower? Like, what is it about her that you think got her to the ascension and took her to where she was or is?
Yeah, well, I mean, if I know my mom really well, which I do, the first thing she's always going to give credit to is to God, and the second thing is she's going to do is she might not say this, but her superpower, I believe, is her ability to tell somebody's story when they don't know how to tell it. And, I created my own little version of my own kind of podcast thing, and it's based off of what she started off with. She had this really cool thing. She had like this nice like leather bound book that she would go into as a presentation for a potential new client. And on the binding used to say the greatest story never told. But when you opened it up, it was just like a big journal. But on that first page, it said, it's your story, own it. And so that was cool. That was like her cool leave behind. And it really made like an impact with people. And she was able to work her way through the ranks. She had big clients like America Cancer Society, Commerce Bank back in the day. She really crushed it, and she still does today.
And what is like this? What is it? Is it her social aspect of things? Is it the way that she presents herself? What are what are some of the things that you see in her? I guess is she like a really good communicator? Is that those are the things? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I'd say so, but I think it's also her ability to find opportunity.
Mm.
Just recently, she wanted to focus more of her efforts into a specific sector and a niche, and she was searching and searching, and then she found this one opportunity and said, "Hey, listen, I noticed some things, and I think I might be able to help you out. I'd love to have a conversation if you're open up to it." And what do you know? They said, "Wow, talk about God answering a prayer. Here I am." Wondering like how can we get to this next level, and we're scared and we're trying to think of somebody that can help us out, and what you do and what you're suggesting is perfect for it. So it started into a consulting role, then it became a full-time thing, and it was just because she saw an opportunity and acted on it, and that was it.
I think that second part was the most important, right? How many people actually take that leap and do it? That's
Not
pretty,
many.
That's pretty dope, dude. That's pretty dope. Man,
Yeah.
props to your mom. All right. And then dad was a sales guy.
Yeah. So my father, same thing. He worked his way up the ranks. He did commercial retrofit, HVAC. So
that's super sexy. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, man. Well, I'll tell you, do you know when it is sexy? When you're sitting in an office and then you have like, oh my gosh, it's 95 degrees in here. Why isn't the air conditioner working? He was the guy that would fix it. So
you probably purposely turn it up a little before.
Yeah. No, he was great because in the beginning he did a lot of residential work, and so he was in Mr. and Mrs. Smith's house doing the HVAC stuff, doing the plumbing, and he was a jack of all trades just because he believed he didn't want to be. Well, one day he saw that his dad, who was in HVAC, just get kicked to the curb because the union didn't have a job for him at that time, so he had to wait until the next job came in. And he's like, well, no, I'm going to learn electrical work. I'm going to learn HVAC. I'm going to learn plumbing. I'm going to learn something. So I always have a job. And that was his thing. So he knew a lot about everything. And so he could do installs. He could do service. And then eventually he's like, you know what? I don't want to be a wrench anymore. I don't want to be sitting on top of a roof, 95 degrees outside, sweating my tail off. And, he got into the sales side, and he'll tell you in the beginning, he was terrible. He couldn't figure it out. And, the Hutchinson family, very big name. They saw a lot of promise in him, and he worked his way through the ranks in there, and he became like the OG of all types of HVAC. And then he did a lot of state work, so he was in a lot of cool places. I'll say that.
Dude, let me tell you, the trades are such a big thing now. It's actually on a major radar of a lot of private equity. And when you look back at the way, like, I wish I had learned something with my hands. I mean, I'm horrible with my hands. I always tell people my gift is my mouth, but I don't know how far that's taking me so far. But it's really intriguing to me, that whole thing, because some of my good buddies locally that are the most successful are really strong tradesmen that developed amazing businesses. And I know it's almost like, is college really worth it for some of these kids that, it's such a hard argument. It's such a hard argument.
Is.
Yeah.
It is. And you know what it is? It's once you realize that there's certain professions and people that deserve to be in certain places. And I don't mean that from a weird perspective, like you don't deserve to be in here because of some silly, reasoning. I'm saying like, your trade, your superpower, what your God-given talents are, kind of what you were talking about earlier, is not maybe doing the talking like you and I are. Give them a couple tools, and these guys are magicians, and they'll make castles, and they'll do amazing things that you and I could never dream of. In fact, my dad shielded me a lot from that stuff. He's like, I don't want you to be a wrench. I don't want you to follow my footsteps. Go do something and be in the air conditioning, So, but it all works well in a good spot. And I agree with you. The trades world is going to be hyper valuable to anybody that can, go through those ranks, because, we talk about AI, you talk about transitions on things. Eventually, you're going to see robots doing stuff, but that mechanical stuff, somebody's got to work on the robots. Somebody's got to work on keeping everything cool. Somebody's got to, put the wires together, and they have to do it in a certain way. And the best of the best can see things that other people can't. And that's what makes them the best of the best.
So it's interesting, and then I'm going to segue to a couple other things. It's as you do these conversations, you learn more about people, and then you have all these side conversations. And you're one of the first people I've ever interviewed where you have a lot of shoes to fill in the sales part. Most people, it's their first generation, right?
Right.
You have two rock star parents that really. Sales didn't become a respected profession, and to a certain level still hasn't, right? But I feel like our generation has made it this cool, sexy side hustle, gig economy. It's taking sales to a level it never was from a respectability standpoint. And let's be honest, you and I, when we have different focuses, we're professional sales people. That's what we do, and we love that, right?
Yeah.
I love the fact that you have parents that did that, because that's such a really cool way to learn and understand that it's a real profession with a real level of expertise, and it's awesome, dude. It's cool. It's really cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, and I mean, I have a couple feathers in my cap. Two amazing people. Not only that love me dearly, but also that I can bounce ideas off of. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had ideas and I send it to my mom and we're like, what do you think? And I was like, but you can't be my mom. You got to like critique the heck out of this. and then she's like, no, this is good. And, it's even better too when you get to help them out with things as well. And for my father, there's been many times that I talked to him about sales scenarios and I run ideas by him. And, he's a little bit more old school and a little bit, to the point, which his generation did. I'm a little bit softer on those sides, but what I can say is that it's great to have those people that you can bounce those ideas off of. Any good salesperson needs mentors. You need to have people that you can share ideas with that the public doesn't need to see yet. And, you got to have a bullpen of things that you're constantly thinking of and working on. And I'm blessed to know that I have those people and the resources available to me.
You couldn't have hit the nail more on the head, man. The mentorship is so critical in not only your ability to get started, but your ability to keep going and then your ability to grow. And it is such a headsy profession because it's so many ups and downs that if you don't have that versatility and ability to keep evolving, you're dead in the water. You're dead in 100%. The water. Yeah, that's
you have to.
So well said, man. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to be like Madonna. I mean, she's reinvented herself like 50 times, I
mean, that's an interesting one. I haven't heard that in a while, but spirituality. So talk to me about spirituality and your view and how it's played a part in your life and you're teaching your children. I want to hear that stuff.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that, man. Honestly, most of my journey is, it's on the later part of my life. Early on, I went to church a lot with family. I was there, like 3 or 4 times a week, just because there was friends there. We were part of the church. We were part of the community. We went to Bethel Christian Center in Blackwood across from Highland High School. And I knew a lot of, great people there. I was, again, very involved in the church and it was great. But then as I got into my teens, I kind of got away from God and I did my own thing. And it wasn't until I had my son and I realized that I was going to be the person that, was going to have some type of spiritual impact on him, that I needed to be more part of that situation again and get to know God on a personal level. So I started going back to church, probably back to school too. And I go over to Marlton Assemblies of God now, but I went there, one, because it was convenient, but two, the pastor over there, Pastor John, he's awesome. He's you would love him, man. He's just full of dad jokes. He's always he's almost like a practical joker, literally born on April 1st, April Fool's Day. And what's cool is that not only has it impacted the way I think I operate in sales, but it's also made me a better person, for my son, holding myself more accountable. And obviously, taking things that I used to think that was very important that I needed to do. And now I know that I don't have to do that anymore. So it's tough because sometimes you go on that journey and you lose some people. But it's not me judging anybody. It's just me judging myself and just trying to be a better person overall.
I would say, and I always tell people this when it comes to religion, for me, it's teaching my children a path to God, right? And God is just a symbol of a higher being that they can lean on when they need help, right? So I don't care who your God is. I don't care what your path to God is. I just want my children to have the ability to have the emotional support of something bigger than all of us, so that when they get in those tough times, they can pull themselves out of it, right? And that's a very broad level view of how I view it, because my wife is Irish Catholic and I grew up Jewish, and our children are baptized. And when you grow up in those sectors, you know, the one thinks theirs is great and the other thinks theirs is great, and you can never cross lines and blah, 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 blah. And when you get older, you realize it's bullshit, right? And I don't mean the religions are bullshit. I mean that two people from two different religions can't fall in love and have a happy family. That's bullshit.
I agree.
Right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And I think that the one thing I love about my wife and I is that we're teaching our children that. So they have one singular path to religion, so they're not super confused in how they do things, but they're respecting of different faiths.
Right. Oh yeah, 1,000%. And I would go even, you know, a step further to add on top of that. Like earlier, I was saying that one day my son's going to realize that dad's not this superhuman that, you know, he might think that I am, you know, because I thought that of my parents. He's going to realize that dad has faults, right? And I wanted to show him something that in my eyes is perfect. Yeah. And then so, you know, yeah, dad has faults and dad makes mistakes, but let me show you some other things that can help you guide you through life. That you have your, like you said, your own relationship with God, and not only in the tough times, but in the good times as well. You know, so it's opened my eyes up in a lot of different ways. And what's really cool too is that at an earlier part of my business, that was like a thing. You're like, don't talk about religion, don't talk about that stuff. Yeah. And now I found that, believe it or not, it's been the opposite in the last few years, is that a lot more friends and a lot more clients or even prospects have said, oh, I saw that you go to this church or whatever. And it's come up more in conversation because people just want to be with other good people that have the same mindset, man. So it's cool.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, the one thing that I admire about religious people overall is, you know, the things that I don't like was when you're pushy and you proselytize and blah, blah, blah. But the thing that I like about it is that you have a conviction and a belief, right? And I don't care who you are and what you do, you have to subscribe to a system of belief, especially self-belief and self-confidence. Because if you don't have any level of conviction in any aspect, that sucks, right? To me, the meaning of life is really having some sort of conviction for something, right? Yeah. And most importantly, yourself. Like the belief that you can, the belief that you will, and that all stems from, you know, I think it starts with religion, because it's a conviction, it's a belief, it's something you don't doubt, it's something you have unwavering. And that is, to me, in a nutshell, why I think it's cool no matter what you follow or do.
I agree. You know, having something to follow, a path, a guide, is huge. In fact, I just want to share a funny joke. There was a comedian and he was sharing his spot, you know, going back to God. And he mentioned, he's like, at one time, I don't want to talk about the Bible. I don't want to talk about anything like this. But then there's this one guy, he's like, that I met, and he had this amazing, you know, golf membership. And then he's like, so all of a sudden this guy became my best friend. And he's like, here we are on the, you know, third or fourth hole. And, you know, then he starts talking about the Bible and he's like, oh, I don't want to talk about anything about that. And he goes like, why not? Why don't you want to talk about that? And he goes, well, I just, you know, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any of that. And he goes, oh, okay. He's like, well, what have you learned? And he goes, what do you mean? And he goes, well, typically an atheist, they look at all the religions, they look at all the different doctrines, and they go over everything. And then they come to some type of conclusion that they just don't believe based off of a lot of facts and statements and things of that nature. He's like, but you're just a moron, because you've just gone through skipped the entire process and just decided that you weren't going to believe. And it like, I thought that was hysterical when I first heard it, you know, but it's true. You know, you hear a lot of times, you know, don't rely on your own understanding, because God knows the 25-year-old version of Brian and the 45-year-old version of Brian are dramatically different. Mm-hmm. And we might have some similar views on things, but if I listened to the 25-year-old Brian all the time, I would not be in the place that I am now. So
that makes sense, dude. That makes a lot of sense. That's really
sure.
funny. That's cool. Well, listen, I respect the spirituality part. Listen, man, it's all different layers of who you are and why you are, which is really the purpose of my show, man. I take people that are successful in what they do, and specifically in real estate because it's what we do, and understand where it all comes from. The parents, the religion, it's all part of why you are who you are, you know? And then, so that was the first part of the podcast. The second part, we're going to dive deep into what we do. And I really want to impact so much of this because you're so much. So let me explain the hierarchy of our business to people that don't know it. Okay. At the top of the food chain is the realtor, right? The realtor is the one that spends the most time understanding how to bring business in, which is the hardest part. The hardest part is to bring in a lead, to bring in a deal, to bring in a buyer, to bring in the seller. Everyone below it is what we call their supporting cast, right? I'm a supporting cast member. Brian's a supporting cast member. Insurance companies, we're all supporting cast. We help these realtors. We fortify them. We get the deal to the table, and then we're the one that helps them close the deal, right?
Oh, 1,000%.
You know, when you'll agree with this, you need to understand that from day one. So what I figured out in lending, and you can tell me how this worked for you, is I got my first job in lending and I didn't know anything about a loan. Nothing. I took this test. The test means nothing. It doesn't prepare you for anything. And the person who first hired me said, Chad, go out and start selling loans. And I said, how the hell do I do that? Right? How the hell, right. What am I selling? Because I understood there was a sea of millions of guys slinging loans. It's a loan sea. There's everyone, credit unions, banks, lenders, blah, 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 whatever they want to call themselves. So I'm out here and I'm calling everybody and I'm saying, what's up, Bruno? And I'm like, I could show him. And I do this. I try and do this when I get them. What's up, Bruno?
What's going on? How you doing, big?
And, you know, so you're doing this and you're learning the landscape and you're understanding that, all right, I'm never going to get any business asking a realtor who couldn't give a crap about me, right? Do you want to have a cup of coffee? Would you like to get a hot dog? Blah, blah, blah. It ain't happening, right? It's not happening. And I want to hear your take on this. And before I even get into that, let me press reverse. How the hell did you get in the title, bro?
Oh, that's funny. So it actually, they coincide with each other. So the deal is, I did payroll first. That was my first entry level into sales in general, and was great. It was with ADP, the payroll company, and they taught you like steps of the sale and all that stuff. But it was a hard sale, and I had to go to South Philly. And if you think selling real estate's hard, you try to go talk to somebody in South Philly to try to get people on a payroll, let alone even talk about payroll. So.
That's awesome. You don't do anything on the books anyway, bro. So yeah.
Oh yeah. So also exactly. So I just said like that calloused me as a salesperson, right? You know, it helped me out getting a lot of rejection. And then eventually I worked my way into merchant services. That's like credit card processing. And I developed a lot of network there. And then what happened is one day the stock market is, you know, taking its dive and I'm sitting there and it's like 500 points. 600 points. And I'm sitting there looking at the CPA that was downstairs and he's just like, you know, having his coffee. And I'm like, you're not upset about this? Nothing. And he's like, yeah, it's just a big market correction. No big deal. And it happens every 7 years. So I was like, okay. I'm like, all right, well, I guess. And then I walk out of there and I'm like, all right, no big deal. Well, I was a residual based earner. And long and the short of it is I'm looking at my big old Palm Pilot. Remember those things, those indestructible cell phones?
I love it.
Yeah, and dude, I could throw down a flight of steps and still work. So I was looking at my residuals and they're starting to dwindle a little bit. They're going a little bit lower. And then I'm losing a client here. I'm losing a client. Then I'm starting to get phone calls from people. Bri, I made some bad decisions. I need you to help me out. Because at that time, I was also helping people out, not only with their merchant services or introducing them to my friends in the payroll company, but I would start to talk to them and say, hey, what's keeping you up at night? What problems do you have? Because I was networking so much. I just knew so many stinking people that I was like, oh, you got to call Chad. He's going to help you with your loan. You got to talk to Bruno. Bruno's going to hook you up with AI. You got to talk to this person. You know, obviously AI wasn't around then, but you get what I'm saying. The idea is I had somebody for everybody. And eventually I thought to myself, I feel like this is a downward spiral and I just don't want to be on the bottom. So I started trying to get back into the world of sales, and I took a lot of different interviews, and I started getting the final calls and the final interviews, and then they would say, Brian, you're overqualified, and we're afraid that if we hire you that we're going to have to promote you and then hire somebody else in 6 months. And I was like, well, great. Now I still don't have a job. Awesome. Thanks for the compliment, I guess, So I reach out to a good friend of mine, and we're having a beer one day, and I'm telling him about this. And I said, I got to do a career change. I'm not sure where I should go. And he goes, do you ever think about title insurance? I think you'd be really good at it. And I was like, what the hell is title insurance? and so he's like, well, I'll set something up for you, and, we'll see where it goes from there. And I was like, all right, I guess, sure. So I took an interview, did well, got another interview, and then, I got accepted, started out in my position, and then 17 years later, here I am. But it was a really weird way to get in there. But the whole network that I built helped me with the next part of my business. So I'm sure we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, we're going to unpack all that, but I'm I wanted to know how you got in it. Okay, that part makes sense. I have a different but kind of similar thing where I was not thrilled with what I was doing either, and I'd always had an affinity towards a real estate thing, right? And it just so happened that this was the thing I got into and liked. But I always like real estate, always like finance, blah 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 blah. So
right.
So you get into. I want to know you. So that was my 30-second view of the hierarchy of this business. What do you see when you get in? What's your take on it? How do you view it?
Oh, geez. And this is going to hurt me for a little bit, but it is what it is. So when I got into the business, I realized that same totem pole, but I put, the realtors up there, and then you guys as the lenders and attorneys kind of flying either at that same position. And then all the way down here was like title, and then like property casualty insurance. And so I realized that, I was once the authority, at the top, giving out the business and everything else. And now I had to figure out, I was like, well, what did I need up here that would have helped me out significantly that I could do? Because in the beginning, they just said, go talk to realtors and ask them for business. And like you, I was like, what am I going to ask? Why would they give me business? They don't know who I am. and then you're telling me they have a relationship already. Why the hell would they want to use me if they already have somebody? And so, those questions weren't always really answered. And then, you get kind of.
Brian, I'm going to answer your question, right? Like, now that you and I know this, right? And we've done this for so long. Why is it so hard? Like, there's such shitty mentors. Like, I don't understand. Like, for me, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're selling title. I don't care if you're selling loans. The only thing that matters is the referral relationship, right? So why are we being taught to go sling something with no tools, no aspect of how it's going to be? Like, it's just, is it really that hard for them to figure out? Is there just laziness? Like, what, or are they just consumed with what they're doing? What is it?
Well, it's funny you mention that. I see. I'll give the negative and the positive side of that. Yeah. The negative side is that it could be people are just inherently lazy and they don't care and they don't know how to train. That happens. There are those people. But I also think that there's something very unique and powerful about being baptized in fire, right? Yeah. And what I mean by that is when you're thrown to the wolves, when you have no idea what you're doing, the one thing you are is you're fearful, right? And when you're fearful, all of your senses are on a high alert. And you are listening and you're absorbing a lot of information. And the idea isn't that if they're a good mentor and they want to throw you to the wolves, they want you to listen and want you to come back with feedback so then they can coach on those things, right? And so the good mentors for me have said, go out there and talk to people. And then when you're all done, I will show you how you can change this and that and this and that or whatever. And that's a great mentor, and that's what I try to do for anybody that I train now. I give them a 30, 60, 90-day plan. The one thing I throw on top of there is that you have to figure out something that is very unique about you that only you can do, your superpower. And that is the thing that you're going to start with, because if you don't know about title, you don't know about lending, you don't know about real estate, you don't know about law, you don't know about all these things, but the one thing you have is this thing. That's what you're going to start with. That's going to be your brand. So I see kind of a positive and negative to it,
Interesting. So could take me back to what was your first big break in the business? Who was your and how did it work? Can you think back to it?
Believe it or not, I fell into things. And by the grace of God, it was being at the right place, right time. I developed that reputation as the networker, as the connector, or that person that was just a likable guy.
Were you doing events? What were you doing out of the gate? Were there things you were doing?
I was a networking monster. I was at every event 5, 6, 7 times, a week. And when you say, Brian, there's only 7 times, that you could do something a night, I'm like, I know, I hit 2 in that night. I hit 3, I did everything. Yeah. And I learned how to interconnect, but I would go to, all the different things. And I wouldn't just do the real estate stuff. I would go outside to the other business focused things where there wasn't a lot of me, my competitors, if you will, around. And so not only I didn't work just inside the business, I worked on the outside the business the most.
Yeah, I like that. That's very cool. And what were you, are you conscious that you have a strategy when you go into a networking event?
Yeah, no, I do. There's, I have a little, well, I can't say low. It's a huge posted thing over here. Remember Win, Lose, or Draw? The big thing, whatever. Yeah. I got one of those things where it has all the people that I look for potentially anytime I'm networking. I'll just name off a couple. Obviously, there's realtors and mortgage lenders, but there's commercial bankers, brokers, attorneys, financial advisors, CPAs, credit repair people, builders, investors, builders. I mean, property and casualty people. I mean, business coaches. I got tons of them. So I after I've learned what those people need, then I could interconnect them to other people in my, my sphere. And, after you have 1,000 cups of coffee meeting different people, you can kind of learn that they basically need the same thing.
Interesting.
And it's cool. I just learned how to, connect those dots really early on.
So it's not really something that's an unspoken secret. It's just the execution at scale, right? It's just you doing as much of it as you can and getting as many people to know who you are. And then, not taking it, how are you at this point with because you've done it 17 years and you're teaching people, what are the things that, starting from when you began to now, what have you perfected? What's your, for lack of a better term, what is your shtick? What is it that you tell people now?
Yeah. Usually when I start chatting with people, I can identify opportunity fairly quickly. I can see.
Sounds like mom.
That maybe
like your mom.
Yeah. I did. Yeah, exactly. And, by taking that skill, I can say like, hey, Chad, you know what? I think I'm going to put you in touch with this type of person because they're looking for exactly that type of caliber person that's going to refer you this person, and this. So I'm just not going to send you one loan. I'm going to send you somebody that can send you 10 this year.
Right.
And that was my selling point, is that I'm not going to just, help you out with marketing or buy you a drink at happy hour. It was like, I want to help you build your business and I want to help you grow something that you either don't know how to do or that you should know how to do, but I'm going to do it for you and get you kickstarted in the right direction.
And that's powerful, man, because then you're utilizing your most valuable aspect, which is your own network, right?
Oh,
and
1,000%.
And that's something anyone can do, right?
Anybody.
This isn't it's not a secret. Like you went out and you did one by one, you built brick by brick, connection by connection. You developed your own network and you're just using your own network to then grow their network, right? And
100%.
In essence, is that your business plan?
Some of it. It's hard because networking takes work. It's not something that you can just press a button and then business is going to come in. You got to follow up with people. You got to stay in touch. You got to be active.
Yeah.
You have to build value back. A lot of times people go into networking events and they're thinking of themselves first. And that's the exact opposite of what you should be doing. The first thing you need to be doing is actually looking for other opportunities for people in your network. So when I'm talking to a Chad, when I'm talking to a builder, when I'm talking to whomever, I'm not listening for my own self. I already know what I could potentially get. What I'm really looking for is an opportunity that I could, again, put them in touch with somebody in my network. Hey, do you know this person? I think they might be of value to you, or they're right over there. Let me walk you over to them and then see where this can go from there. When you do that for somebody like immediately, that's something. But the hardest part about that is I could tee it up. You know what I mean? And everybody who has ever played basketball would love a wide open layup, right? And that's what I try to give somebody, but you still got to make the shot. You know what I mean? And if you don't follow up, if you don't do the work behind the scenes, I can't help you with that. And so what I can help you out is get you started. But if you don't want to do the work, networking's not for you.
Yeah, but it's interesting, dude. A lot of people will try and buy the book, but very few actually execute the plan, right? And I think that's really what it comes down to. But it's interesting when I hear you talk, because prior to title and you entering this, were you consciously aware of any of that?
I learned it in the merchant services side the biggest. It's funny. I actually remember my first time going into a big meeting at ADP. I was talking to my boss's boss, and I was trying to get like $100 for them to let me go to this networking event or whatever it was, or something that we were putting on. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm networking. I'm sitting down." And I was sitting down with people that ran Kistler Tiffany benefits, that were VPs of bank, and not just like any VP. I mean, like back when that was like an actual title. And I should not have been sitting at these tables. And I knew that, and I recognized that. And I said, "There's a lot of opportunity here. I really wish you." And he's like, "No, you just need to go knock on doors, in South Philadelphia and see if you can find an opportunity for payroll." And that's when I realized that just wasn't for me anymore. But when I got into merchant services, the people that I had partnered up with, they saw what I could do, and they just, took the reins, off of me. And because I was just free to move around, I developed relationships and business opportunities everywhere. And that's what helped me throughout the rest of my career. Even still today, those relationships that I made in my early 20s, I still talk to those people.
And you know what else is important? It doesn't matter where you go or what you do. You have your own book of business, your own brand, right? And these are the things that make you so valuable, which is another thing. This is why, to me, you're an outlier. Like, I don't know anyone as strong as you in your line of work that do what you do. I mean, I've met other people in other companies, but there's you happen to be in title, so I'll use that. But you're one of the strongest, if not the strongest, title company executive. And I'm going to use executive because I don't like representative and I don't like those other words. You're one of the strongest I've ever seen.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. It means a lot.
And that has nothing to do with who I've used in title. You and I haven't really done much together, full transparency. And that has nothing to do with any of this. You are very, very, very elite in what you do. And I think it all goes back to the conviction, man. I think you just dive deep in it. You're very confident in it. I think it just so happened to have been title, right? It could have been anything.
Yeah.
And the lesson to learn about that is, it doesn't matter what you're in or what you're selling. It matters that you have a strong belief in it, that you commit to it, that you can, and you execute day in and day out, because when you have the conviction, you will get the buy-in. And when you have the buy-in, you will have the referral and the long-standing, deep, 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 deep business, which is one of the most important parts of this. It doesn't matter who we teach. And Brian, I'll give you another, everyone always tells me you need a team. You should have a team. You should have a team of lenders. You be so good at it, blah, 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 blah. I'm still not mentally ready for a team, because I always say to myself, I can't feed them right now. Like, I'm so focused on what I'm doing and figuring out my processes and systems that I'd be afraid that I'd leave them to the wayside. Right. I think that the overarching part that I'm getting from all of this is that you've got to find a way to pick your lane, but also, and you can tell me what you think, these are slow burns, right? You're not going to watch $1 million listings and make $1 million overnight.
No. My father used to say there's a quick nickel and a slow dime. The slow dime wins every time. And you got to understand that anything worthwhile that you put your time, blood, sweat, and tears into is going to be well worth it, aside from something that you just got an easy layup. Don't get me wrong, I got some really good opportunities with an easy layup, and they're great to have. Everybody loves one swing at the bat and hit a home run. But I can say, if you just learn how to really pepper your audience and find new opportunities, and you'll grow that brand. And kind of like what you were saying, any good salesperson, whether they're in title, lending, pharmaceutical sales, whatever, you have a brand. People will recognize you. That is your brand. You know, you are always selling. And it's just a shame that people don't realize that, because a lot of times too, other good salespeople recognize other good salespeople. Like, man, you could be better if you would just, right? And that's the toughest thing to get past, is the if you would just.
Right.
But that has to be somebody to make a decision.
But I think I'm going to bring this back full circle, and you're going to love this. This is kind of what I do. I'm going to bring it back to when you were talking about your mom and you opened up that book, right? And in it, it's your story to tell. So I think the moral of the story here is that if you focus on developing your story to tell, and you do it in a way that it resonates with people, you will the business will be secondary to the relationships you're going to build.
1000%, man. You have to know your story and where you came from. And also too, I hate to say it, but it happens a lot in our industries. You got to remember where you came from, right? You have to be humble. Even if you have a crazy amount of success, you still have to be humble, because in a New York minute, it can be gone. Yeah. It can go somewhere else. It could change. It could go, whatever. And a lot of times people, they start reading their own newspaper articles. The next thing you know, they're a business coach. Yeah. The next thing you know, they got something. I mean, it's like, just be great at what you do. And I'll say this to add one thing on top of that. When I sat down at those networking opportunities and realized, I was like, why are you guys giving me a shot? I'm a 23-year-old kid that I've been in sales for a year and a half or whatever. I don't know anything. And you guys have these huge networks. Why are you letting me here? And they saw something in me. And they said that, and they said, Bri, we see something in you, and, we want to help you out, and we're going to coach you the best way that we can. But your job is to one day, when somebody asks you that same question, is to pass along the knowledge and that what we are teaching you now. And that's what I do, is like, there's an opportunity for me to really show somebody how to network and do it the right way. I will do that.
And there's one thing you and I have very much in common that I think anyone would say, is that we are so positive and have such a joyous and motivational way in which we do this, that to me, that's the best thing you can teach your children, right? Is that it doesn't matter what you do. It's that if you can connect with it, it's going to bear fruit, right? It's going to bear. And what an important lesson to teach anybody, but especially your children, is that, as they find different hobbies and sports and things that they're trying to connect with, whatever you do, make sure you can connect with it, because, I would say 95% of people don't. It's just a job. Right. They're just punching the clock. And that sucks, dude. Yeah. That sucks.
It does. It's no way to live your life. You have to be positive. And don't be wrong. And you'll say this too. There's bad days. I can't say you never have a bad day. You like to say that, but sometimes you're just, what did my father used to say? Sometimes you're the bug, sometimes you're the windshield, right? And there's going to be days that you get splat. The client hits you up with something, the buyer last minute buys some furniture and a car right before closing. All these things happen last minute, and it's not necessarily anybody's fault. But what can happen from there is how you handle that situation and how you move forward. Or if you have that bad day, can you sit there and you say to yourself, you know what? I got air in my lungs. I got a roof over my head. I got water. I got my, food in the fridge. Life's not so bad. I think I'm okay. I'll get past this day. And, it's okay to, what did somebody say one time? It's okay to go down the hole, but you got to know you got to come back out.
That's true. I love it, man. Well, we did it, bro. 54 minutes and 21 seconds in. Everyone always says they never understand how these things go so quickly. But, I hope a lot of people, we're going to do a lot of reels on these and push this stuff out. But I hope a lot of people watch this episode, because you are way more and have always been more than a title person to me. You've always been a master salesperson, a master marketer, and just a really downright good dude. So I want to thank you so much for coming on my podcast, bro. It really means a lot.
Oh, for sure, man. I appreciate you letting me tell my story and give a little secret sauce here and there. And just a little kind of closing statement. If anybody ever wants to learn how to network, if you need help with sales, if you need ideas, I love to, brainstorm and powwow on those things. So please reach out. We'll connect. happy to do so. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, thanks for watching another edition of the Superstars Podcast. Follow us on YouTube at Superstars Podcast and all your socials. We'll see you again with another sexy episode with people that are just absolutely killing it in the game they're in. We will talk to you guys soon. Have a good day. Peace.